Good morning, everybody, and thank you. Delighted to be here. And before I get going, I want to have a big shout out to Evoke Ag. This is a pretty amazing event that you're putting on here. I know there's a hell of a lot of work that goes into this, and I just want to give a big shout out to the team. I know there's a lot of work that goes into this, so big call out to John and the team. We launched our Thrive Australia Challenge last week, and we did that in partnership with the Victorian government and also with CSIRO. And I guess we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Evoke and if it wasn't for Victorian government and CSIRO, so thank you for that. So I've been in Silicon Valley for 22 years. I haven't lost my accent, so just in case, I'm actually originally from Ireland. And what is an Irishman doing in Silicon Valley? I went over there in the late 90s and experienced the whole wave of technology, the culture of what happens there in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit. Went over there in '98, worked with a company called Palm, and we invented a smartphone and created about a $3.5 billion company in the space of 3 years. I don't think I'd ever thought about that in Ireland. I wasn't thinking at that latitude. I was scared about failure and some of the challenges there. So I really got a great education in the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem there. The second thing is, why the hell do we get into agriculture? So just for some of you, you might know that obviously Silicon Valley is right in California, but it's surrounded by the richest farmland in the world. It's the capital of the United States for fresh food, so the likes of Driscoll Berries and Taylor Farms, Dole Foods are some of the biggest companies there. So when we set out about 8 years ago, we wanted to bring the world of technology and agriculture together to see how we can really improve and solve some of the challenges that we have. I think many of you kind of see some of the data in terms of Silicon Valley. There's $130 billion invested in the United States. That's the number one place on the planet where entrepreneurs come for investment. 36 to 40% of that is actually invested in Silicon Valley. So if I was an entrepreneur, I'd go fish where the fish are. This is where there's a lot of opportunity there to grow. The ecosystem there has evolved not over like 2 years or 10 years, probably over 70 years. And you've seen iterations of the greatest companies on the planet that have changed the way we all live, the way we all work today, in terms of the likes of Google, how they've shaped our world. Apple, I think many of us have smartphones and iPhones today. So our whole world has changed dramatically. And this is a good slide. I'm sure many of you have seen this. But once upon a time, the energy sector or some of the big retail sectors really owned, the largest companies in the world. Today, it's technology. But the biggest challenge that we're dealing with, everybody in the room here, is agriculture. And how do we feed a growing population? This is probably the most exciting part of my life, being involved in this, because there's nothing more important than this industry. This is the industry that puts food on our table at home. It's the industry that can drive a sustainable planet, and it's an industry that can really create huge value for every country on the planet. The challenges are fairly significant, though. We've got a growing population. We've got major challenges in terms of climate, water scarcity. Labor is a massive issue, certainly in California. I know it is here in terms of both scarcity of labor and the cost of labor. Also, it's hard to imagine that in the 21st century that we're seeing major food safety issues. So we're really dealing with some major challenges. In addition to that, the consumer is changing the game. Consumers are now looking for trust in a product. They're looking for where that product comes from. Health is more important than just taste. So it's really changing the game. 50% of the planet today is made up of Gen Z or millennials. This is a whole new world for our business and for our industry to be able to support this new generation that is looking beyond just the traditional food. They're looking to make a global impact. Our ecosystem, just like what we set out in Silicon Valley, was to kind of bring the world's leaders in terms of technology, investment, the entrepreneurs from all over the world. Today we work with about 3,500 startups in various different countries, about 90 different countries around the world. And our platform that we built is really kind of working with major corporations that are looking for that needle in the haystack, that company that could disrupt their technology and disrupt their company. And we run an accelerator called Thrive, and our investment fund is called SVG Ventures. And the ecosystem is really what kind of brings all this together. That's why Evoke Ag is so important today, because the ecosystem, bringing a group like this together, is so powerful to building relationships and building a great business. One of the things that we did about 7 years ago was founded the agtech summit that didn't exist at the time. We did a partnership with Forbes Media, and now we're bringing the entrepreneurs that come through our program right on the world stage, reaching about 2 billion people when they're exposing their technologies to the world. Over the course of the last number of years, we focused on growth stage companies that are the most significant companies in our sector. We have identified 50 of the best companies on the food side and 50 of the biggest companies on the ag tech side. This is an analysis that we've been doing for the last 4 years, or 4 months, feels like 4 years. And just want to kind of give you a flavor of what that looks like. So you can see that entrepreneurs are affecting every single step of the supply chain. And I think, as we all know, obviously there's so much innovation that's happening in the field, and we always talk about ag tech, but it's really right out to the consumer, and that's where we're making the biggest impact. The companies that are in this space, this is just a flavor. So these are the top companies that would either have raised the highest amount of capital. They're making the biggest impact in terms of traction in the industry, and they're obviously got some world-class teams. We kind of looked at the different categories. Obviously, biotech has been around for a long, long time, so crop protection, nutrition is still hugely important for this industry. But look at next generation foods. This is the new proteins that are coming, and I know you're very aware of that. That's really gone up to about a $2 billion business in terms of investment. Controlled environment, vertical farming is becoming a major disruptor in the industry, but also it's supplementing some of the challenges that the industry is faced with. Now, where is all the funding going, and why aren't Australian startups getting their fair share? Well, I can tell you that for the last 3 years, we've done this analysis, and for the first time this year, there are 3 Australian companies that are on our list. So we were really thrilled about that. The Yield, AgriWeb, and AgWorld. So a big shout out for those companies that have made it there. Our accelerator is mostly focused on the very early stage companies, so companies that need their first $1 million or first $500,000. We've worked with those to help them create access. We've been doing it for about 5 years, and many of the companies are really seeing some really good success in terms of what we're doing. This year, we selected 14 companies from over 90 countries. We had over 550 applications, and again, we ran our Thrive Australia Challenge last week, and we have 3 Australian companies that we have invested in last week that are coming over to Silicon Valley this month. And again, we're really seeing that Australia is stepping up, and last year in particular was probably the best year from an ag tech perspective in Australia. Obviously, there's a long way to go, but if you look at the stats, this is coming from PitchBook. Many of you might be familiar with PitchBook. It's the main platform that's capturing all the data in terms of venture capital investment. So we've really looked at some of the leading countries and compared how Australia is doing. So you can see, obviously, 2019 was a phenomenal year for startups in Australia, and hopefully we'll see this as the start of a long journey in terms of growth in this space. So if we look over the next 10 years, what's going to happen? Are these big companies that are, owning the space today going to still be there? Are some of them going to get disrupted? Where is Google today? Where is Amazon today? What are they going to do? Because once they enter the market, they're going to really revolutionize, our space. I can tell you, this is my prediction. We've got some certain knowledge here or there, but Google and Google X are heavily focused on the whole farm management side. Look at all the assets they have. They have, satellite imagery, they have mapping all over the world. I think they're going to enter this year in a big way. And I think they're going to lead a significant revolution that's happening right now. I think Amazon, as you know, Amazon bought Whole Foods in the United States, and they're also one of the companies that is the leading supply chain company. I think they're going to be a major player. And then if you look at some of these players here, I think the likes of Beyond Meat, Indigo, and Plenty are really going to step up to be public companies, major players in the next 10 years. So I'm going to end with, this is a phenomenal industry. We're really making a major, major impact. We have a lot to do, but this industry has a greater purpose. We are really helping the planet. We are helping our, mankind worldwide. And obviously, in terms of the challenges of health, the best medicine is good food, and fresh food from Australia. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming out to Australia.
I'm going to hang out here for the next panel.
Well, just wait one moment, because I want everyone just to give you another round of applause, because that was fantastic. And John, I became a dad 2 weeks ago, first time. So I've got a little bubby girl, and every time I look at her, I'm now thinking about 20 years into the future. And I ebb and flow between feeling absolutely excited and invigorated, and then genuinely feeling pessimistic, afraid. How do we remain optimistic in this disruption?
Yeah.
And as a dad, I don't care about the audience. This is a tip for me right now.
As a dad myself, and also, maybe I'm living in California and things are very optimistic in terms of when you're looking out into the future. But I think this generation that's growing up today are really going to help us really kind of put focus and real impact into the sustainable challenges that we have today. And I think that, are these problems going to go away? I don't think they are, but I think innovation is the only way. We can't keep doing the same thing. We got to change the game with new technologies. And I'm very optimistic when I look at the technologies that are here and what's happening already.
I hope my daughter joins the Future Young Leaders Evoke program in 2020. Thank you so much, John.